you have to have two personalities to be accepted. So, the code switching thing. I can't just laugh anyhow at work because how are they going to see me? Or I
Right.
cannot just be my authentic self at work. Having two personalities is very exhausting. Every morning you have to code switch.
Yeah.
And then you come home, you switch again to who you are. So that leads to burnout slowly. It eats you up slowly without you even
Mhm.
knowing.
Welcome. I'm your host, Roheen Bajram. I'm on a mission to redefine the faces of leadership through speaking, consulting, and writing. Unspeakable Leadership is a space to reclaim our stories and empower each other to see the value in how we, as women of color, lead. I hope you'll join me on this journey of unpacking experiences, lessons learned, sharing laughs, and likely a tear or two. Let us grow together in conversation. Hi, everyone. I hope that you are having a phenomenal experience because I know I am, and so are the incredible guests that we get to be a part of with season 2 of Unspeakable Leadership. Now, I get to have a conversation with an amazing leader who I am so excited to introduce next. Let me tell you a little bit about Winnie Keji. Winnie is a leadership and management consultant, a budding entrepreneur, and a lifelong learner. She enjoys giving back to the community through volunteer work. She volunteers as a mentor, a board member, and a participant in dynamic teams. Now, Winnie isn't all about just boardrooms and work. No, no, no. She also enjoys, in her spare time, reading, hiking, traveling, spending time with family and friends, and simply enjoying life. Something that I think is so crucial for each and every one of us to reflect on. Because we got to remember, we're not just here to be a statistic or to hold a title. We're also here to evolve as ourselves. Winnie, thank you so much for being here on Unspeakable Leadership. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you for having me, Roheen. After that introduction, what else do I say?
Oh, I know you have plenty to say, but you know what? I'm gonna hold that with so much with compliment and love and care. Oh my gosh, thank you for spending your
Thank you
time with
for
us.
having me. Thank you so much. I am so grateful and humbled to be here, and I cannot wait for us to have our conversations and, you know,
Yeah,
get all the knowledge we have out there to the other women. But yeah, thanks for inviting me. I am so happy to be here, really.
amazing. No, thank you. And Winnie, I just want to jump into people getting to know who you are because I think I I know a little bit about you, and at the same time, I always learn a lot when I ask this first question. And so I'm going to, invite you to reflect on what has your leadership journey looked like over the years.
Right. No, I always find this to be one of those tough questions when people say, "Tell me a little bit about yourself." I'm like, what do I say? So, my leadership journey, I like to think my leadership journey started from home, being the
Mhm.
firstborn daughter and the eldest one.
Yeah.
So, it started right at home. And so, I led my brother everywhere, doing wrong things and also being well behaved. It just depended on the day.
I
And
love
so
that.
my brother is my biggest fan. If he's going to listen to this, I want him to know that I love him so much. Um, so that's when my leadership journey started. And then when I was 5 years old and in nursery, I was always that person that wrote down the names of noisemakers in class, and I was the class prefect. I'm not going to lie, I enjoyed it so much because it gave me this kind of power that I can't explain. But people would come to me and say, "Can you erase my name? I'm not going to shout anymore." And it just felt very empowering for me. So I was that leader. And then in Sunday school, on Sundays, I would be in charge of the stationery, the Bibles, and make sure like everyone had their little coloring books, all that stuff. Then this progressed right into primary school and up until high school,
Mhm.
where I did enjoy it. And then I discovered boys and I no longer wanted to be a leader. I just wanted to have time. As a girl can only do so much. Like, I cannot be a leader, and when do I get time to spend with my boyfriend? So I I didn't want to be a leader anymore, and focusing just on me growing up. And then I went
Mhm.
into university, and once I joined varsity, being a third culture kid, I struggled with identity. And
Mhm.
so I feel the 4 years of university, I just dedicated it to finding out who's Winnie. What does
Right.
Winnie want? How does high vibration Winnie look like? And how does low vibration Winnie look like?
Mhm.
So I invested so much of my time in discovering who I was. What were my values? What stood out for me? What are things that I could negotiate? My non-negotiables.
Mm.
So I put leadership on a hold, and then I graduated. And after the graduation, I my leadership roles started emerging again when I joined the workforce, and I would find myself in leadership roles, even though I would start from a point where I really don't want to lead. Somehow I found myself leading. So I like to say leadership chose me. It's not really something I went to it, but
Right.
other people would say otherwise. But that's how I found myself in this whole leadership world. And I've been fortunate enough to mentor people and to also
Mhm.
be mentored. I'm so grateful for everyone that has been part of my leadership journey, my parents,
Mm.
my friends. And as we get into the discussion, Rohini, you'll understand why I mentioned the importance of
Yeah.
friends and a close knit circle. I'm so
Yeah.
grateful to those people. My brother, a sounding board, he's someone I call and I can just rant to for like 2 hours, and he will just give me all the wisdom in the end. So I'm very, very grateful for him. And all the other managers that gave me a chance. I
Mm.
can't forget my first manager. I was 18, full of attitude, and I was supposed to show up to work for an interview. I showed up an hour and a half late for an interview, and she still went ahead and interviewed me and actually gave me the job. So I cannot forget her. And I always strive to pay this forward to the next person,
Mhm.
because I just believe if someone gave me that chance, I have to pay it forward. So that is my leadership journey in a nutshell. And right now, I am just doing this leadership thing. I enjoy it so much. I do mentor immigrant women,
Mhm.
especially. I focus on that because relocating to a new country and starting all
Right.
over again is not easy.
No.
You need to have people that give you guidance and support you. So that is where I'm focusing. I do also mentor teenage girls, and such a delight seeing life through their eyes. So right now I have two teenage girls I'm mentoring. I love spending time with them. And yeah, I think that's it for my leadership. Maybe I'm forgetting things, but yeah.
I appreciate you so much, Whitney, sharing. And what I feel is almost a snapshot in time of the different versions of Winnie
Hmm.
alongside this journey of not only self-discovery, like figuring out, like you said, some of the non-negotiables, who is this Winnie at this moment in time. Um, at the same time, it sounds like your leadership has also evolved in connection with others, right? Through mentorship,
Hmm.
through humanity, and sometimes through maybe those um, moments where you've realized, okay, punctuality is a value for some, right? And it doesn't mean it's not your value, but in that moment, somebody had to push away that value and
Hmm.
still take a chance. And I think of your experiences of supporting immigrant women coming to a different culture requires that negotiation and recalibration of values and how to show up. And so, what better way to not only serve community, but to also serve what feels like a leadership journey that is very much rooted in humanity and authenticity? That's really what I'm gathering from who you
Hmm.
are, Winnie, in your leadership journey. It's
Yes,
beautiful.
correct.
I love it. So, Winnie, I've been really excited and also nervous to have this conversation because I recognize that as soon as we mention a word, and I'll mention it soon, um, it's a word that conjures up a lot of not only emotions, it also conjures up a lot of experiences for myself. And I imagine also for those who are listening, and for yourself as well. And I want us to have the conversation because I don't think we have enough conversations, particularly about this topic. And so for those who are listening, they're probably thinking, okay, Raheen, get on with it. What is it that you're wanting to talk about? And and that's burnout, right? Burnout,
Yeah.
which I think many of us either come close to or full on experience. And so I would love from your experience, have you experienced burnout? And how did you, like, how did it come to be in your life?
Right. Yes, I have experienced burnout. And I
Mhm.
think for me, burnout happened in phases. And, as women, especially racialized women, we recognize that there's something wrong, but we keep pushing.
Mm,
And this could be maybe due to that cultural norms that we have. We're just naturally hardworking people. Some of us have come into this country, we don't have our families with us. The
mhm,
socioeconomic status as well, there's the gender, there's the race, systemic, all that stuff is
yeah,
just all against us. So we recognize it, but we ignore it, we push it to the back, and we just keep working. So for
right.
me personally, burnout happened in phases. So I
Mhm,
think in by 2021, I was getting to that phase of being burnt out. And with burnout, it's a combination of physical and emotional, and there's that behavioral signs that show up.
mhm,
But especially when you're very self-aware, you will know that something is wrong with you. So for
right.
me, the first phase of burnout that happened for me in 2021, the physical signs, there was chronic fatigue. I
Mhm,
was very tired. Like I would wake up tired. I would,
mhm,
even after having a really good night's sleep, I would still be very tired the next day.
right.
So I'm going to bed tired, I'm waking up tired. And
Mm,
then there was the frequent illnesses. I became susceptible to things like colds and flus. And naturally, I'm not someone that gets that. Then there
mhm,
was the headaches, the
right.
migraines. I even went to my doctor and I said, I think my glasses, I need to change them. And he said, nothing's wrong with your eyes. It's
Mhm,
not the light, it's not the glasses,
right.
you're just probably stressed.
Right.
So then there's the emotional side of it. There was so much imposter syndrome going on with me. I
Mm,
just, that self-doubt, the lack of confidence, I would just doubt myself so much. Even when I
mhm,
have the experience and I know I'm good at this, I was doubting myself. So that was the first phase. So the symptoms were there, but they were not those symptoms where you think, oh, this is not too aggressive, I can handle
yeah,
it. And so you throw in a little bit of therapy, you put your big girl pants on, and you go back in there and you're just pushing yourself. So that was
right.
2021. And therapy here and there, a little bit of exercise, we're eating right
Mhm,
and we think it's good. Or take a vacation, you know how they always say, just take a couple of days off, you'll
right.
be fine. And so okay, I'll take 5 days, go to Mexico, and I'll come back, and we're back into it. So nothing has changed. You're back.
Mhm,
You have tons of emails, and life goes on. So that was the first phase, and then the second phase was in 2023. That was last year. I think I would say around May. I was
mhm,
just couldn't do it. It was
yeah.
I went to the more signs of it now, which was the
Mhm,
behavioral signs where I was very irritated. And
mhm,
the thing with that, when you get irritated, you don't take it out on your
mhm,
boss or like your employer.
yeah,
Most times you take it out on the people you love. And
right.
so I was now taking it out on my friends, and then isolation. I
Mm,
didn't want to hang out. I just wanted to be in my bed.
mm,
And the thing with this kind of signs, they slowly feed into depression. And if we're not very careful, it also turns into a bit of suicidal thoughts. And
right.
that's why it's always very important for us to speak about burnout, find
Wow.
ways around it. And most of us will go into a coping mechanism. If it's
Mm,
working even harder, we will work and become workaholics. And
mhm,
if it's that side of it where we want to escape it, we will
yeah.
find ourselves binge watching TV or like
Mhm,
involving ourselves in substance abuse. So
mhm,
there's different ways that burnout manifests in different people. But for me personally, it just got to that point where I could not do it anymore. And
Yeah.
I took a long vacation, 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, it coincided with my dad being unwell back home as well. So
Mm-hmm.
that kind of gave me the room to go back home. And when I got home, my parents noticed it. My mom just said,
Oh,
"What is going on in Canada that is making you so tired?" I couldn't stop sleeping. The first few days, you blame it on jet lag. Like,
right.
oh, it's just jet.
Yeah.
But then 3 weeks in, and my mom's like, "What is going on?
Right.
You're not sitting with us. You're not chatting with us. You're not yourself. You're not the bubbly
Yeah.
weenie that we know. What is happening to you?"
Yeah.
And so you need, and that's where I bring the that support system. You
Mm.
sometimes you need people to tell you. You need your
Yeah.
friends to tell you. And I normally say the best way is to build that support system earlier on as a reservoir,
Mm-hmm.
so that when you get to that point, you have
Yeah.
those people who call you out and check you out, say, "Hey, you're not
Yeah.
being yourself, something is not right." And yeah, so I did struggle with burnout. I'm now in a good, but I still experience it, because burnout is not something that you
Yeah.
just take a holiday and you're fine, or just have, sleep a little bit more, you're going to be fine. No, it
Yeah.
takes time, because for you to get to that burnout, it took years to get to it. So it's going to take
Mm-hmm.
a number of years to work through it. It's a work in progress. Some days are different from other days. So
Yeah.
yeah, Rohim, I have experienced burnout, and I'm sure there's a lot of women out there who are listening that have also experienced burnout or are on the verge of
Yeah.
experiencing it. And it's sad, because some of us are in that financial bind where you can't just up and leave and go do
Yeah.
something else or take care of yourself, because you have responsibilities, you have bills to pay. So the best way to do it is to find ways to work around it. If it's the
Yeah.
workplace that is toxic, you want to work on finding an exit plan. And that's
Mhm.
when mentorship comes in too, where you have someone that guides you through this thing and just gives you the right advice of who to
Right.
go to, where to go to, how to do it, so that you're not getting to that point where you're depressed and you're cutting off the people that you really love, because
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to maintain people that is not even sustaining you. And most times burnout comes from all this stress.
Yeah.
It's most times it's combined with work and then personal life. You find
Yeah.
that work personal life is not really a big stress of burnout. It's always work.
Mm-hmm.
High expectations, self-imposed expectations, external expectations on us, all these responsibilities we put on ourselves, a toxic work environment that has a lot of disrespect going on, you're not being seen at work. So most times it's work, and that's the problem. Work always seeps into the personal side of life as well.
Mm-hmm.
You can't separate them too much.
Mm. Hey, my sister. Now, I wouldn't be a good host if I didn't ask you to do this. Like, subscribe, or share this podcast with people you care about. I truly appreciate your support. Winnie, I just want to, oh my gosh, like I'm reflecting on everything that you have shared, and I am so appreciative of you sharing with us your experience. And you said this at the beginning, you really acknowledged that there are symptoms, there's different ways in which burnout manifests for each person, and you've given us
Mm-hmm.
some really, and with so much appreciation, deep reflection into how burnout impacted you, how it impacted your body, and all of the symptoms that for you were able to say, this isn't right, this isn't normal, something needs to change. And so what I would love for you to elaborate on, you know why do we burn out as women of color?
Mm.
Why does that become, in some cases, part of all of our stories?
Yeah, this is a profound question. And I think it's that intersectional stressor, like I mentioned earlier on, we are underrepresented in leadership positions. We find ourselves where we're dealing with racism, sexism, and there's really no ally at the top there for us to say, "Hey, this is what's happening. I can relate to this person more because I know it. I come from this background." So we don't have that. And so it puts us in a place where we become frustrated. We're just frustrated, but we keep trying to overcompensate. We want to be seen, hear me, see me, but no one is seeing that. And so you're overcompensating, which leads
Mhm.
to burnout. Another thing I find with, because I mentor a lot of immigrant women, and I'm an immigrant woman myself, even though I
Mhm.
came to this country when I was young, in my 20s, but
Right.
I see the struggle. And then there's the work inequities as well, where you're not being seen, you're exhausted, you have to have two personalities to be
Mhm.
accepted. So the code switching thing, I can't just laugh anyhow at work because how are they going to see me? Or I
Right.
cannot just be my authentic self at work. Having two personalities is very exhausting. Every morning you have to code switch,
Yeah.
and then you come home, you switch again to who you are. So that leads to burnout slowly. It eats you up slowly without you even
Mhm.
knowing. um, Another thing is the cultural expectations, I would say, where
Yeah.
we come from cultures where we're the caregivers, and
Mhm.
so we are giving to our families. There's the home front, and then there's the work. You're stressed at work, you've worked 16 hours at work, you come
Mhm.
home, you're putting another 8 hours at home. Laundry
Right.
needs to be done, the kids are crying, you have a partner too, he needs your time. So
Mhm.
there's all of these things that is being put on us. And as an African woman, I would say there's also something called black tax, which is that
Mhm.
financial burden, being that
Right.
successful person in the family. People are expecting you to help and support financially. And it's just not your immediate family, it could be the
Right.
extended family. You also have friends who are constantly asking you, like, hey, this is going on, the economy is really tough, they know
Mhm.
you're in Canada, you're working, can you please help? So
Right.
instead of us saying no, because this is our cultural norm, we take
Mhm.
on more multiple jobs, on more responsibilities to be able
Mhm.
to sustain this lifestyle for other people. And so we find ourselves in that burnout situation. And then the lack of support and mentorship. You don't know where to go, you're not networking with the right people, you feel isolated, you're unsupported, and so you don't even have that professional setting where you can go talk to someone and just say, hey,
Mhm.
I am struggling, I need help. And I'm a huge advocate for therapy. I always say go to therapy if you can, but I also understand that not everyone can afford therapy.
Right.
And even though there's different types of therapy, sometimes when you say therapy, the first thing that comes to people's mind is, oh my god, trauma. But there's
Mhm.
workplace therapy. You can speak to people that can help you navigate your workplace. If you have a difficult boss who you're working with, who's disrespecting you, undermining you, there are also therapists that can help you with that. Having a mentor who has gotten to a certain level can also help you with that. And I think the last thing for me is also that mental health stigma that we
Mhm.
as racialized women struggle with. We find it because we've been put in that place in our communities where it's very hard to open up and ask for that help. We
Mhm.
decide to just deal with it on our own. We're discouraged from seeking that help and support. And then even we don't even know where to go to get that competent support.
Yeah.
We look on things online, but like I mentioned, everyone's situation is different. What
Mhm.
manifests for me as burnout, I could stress eat when I'm burnt out and I'm overeating. Someone else is under eating and they're losing weight. So when we go online and look for these things, we really don't get the right information because there's
Mhm.
so much information out there about burnout. So that is also another thing that leads women of color, racialized women, to really struggle with burnout.
Mhm. Thank you so much. Thank you for giving us that breath of what could be different experiences and different exposure to finding the right levels of support. I'm with you. I believe that for anyone who is going through the experience of burnout, sometimes when it's scary to call it burnout. There's
Hmm.
even stigma attached to the word burnout because
Yeah.
all of a sudden you might start to think I'm a weak person. Like, how did I get to this stage of
Hmm.
dysfunction within my body, within my mind, within my soul? And yet, when we remove the stigma and the guilt, that can sometimes accompany burnout, what I'm hearing you say is that there's a beautiful opening to understand that
Mm-hmm.
you can be you can be a different person. You can make different choices. You can show up differently. And that is also a form of success. And so it sounds like you were able to break the cycle.
Yes. Yes.
What if you could give one, like an opening into one thing that you think about and you're like, I'm so glad I did this. This is the most important amongst many other things. What would that be?
um, it was resigning from my job, and it was a hard thing to do because I had established myself and had gotten to the top. And
Yeah.
so me waking up and deciding that this no longer serves me, this is no
Yeah.
longer serving my life's purpose. I don't need this kind of pressure for myself. This is not sustainable.
Right.
And I was very honest with myself and just breaking that cycle and saying
Mhm.
enough is enough
Yeah.
is one of the best things I have done for myself. People that saw me, and I think Rohini, you saw me earlier this year, and you could tell that
Yeah.
no, and you seeing me now, we are in a very different space. And I think sometimes um, it takes a lot of courage, but also I think it
Yeah.
takes seeing how other people live. I know this is a segue, but I'll quickly jump into it.
Mhm.
So for me, it was around May when I traveled to New York. And
Mhm.
I say it in a joking way that New York saved me, but people will not understand. But I traveled to New York in May, and I
Yeah.
had gone to visit some of my friends. These are friends who are working with big financial
Yeah.
organizations. But at the end of the day, they had time to have dinner and hang out. And
Right.
I looked at myself and I said, I'm not even working with like the big
Mhm.
companies, the big dogs in finance, but I can barely have time to go out for drinks with my friends. If you tell me on a work day, if you had told me back then, like, hey, let's go for drinks, but no, 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 I'm going home. Mm-mm.
Right.
I, I cannot, I didn't have that kind of energy or time at the end of the day. But seeing my friends doing that, it just,
Mhm.
I think there was a dead side of me that resurrected. And I
Oof.
came back and I was just like, I want to have a life like this. I want to be
Yeah.
able to hang out with my friends who tell me I'm in town. Can we hang out? Because those friends, I just told them, hey, we're in town. And they all came together. These are people who have busy lives, but they were
Yeah.
able to come and we hung out every single time I was in New York. We did have dinner. We laughed about it. They took us around. And for me, that was yeah, it resurrected that dead side. So when I was coming back on the plane, I had already made the decision that I am going to find something that aligns with my life's purpose. I don't want to just be working. I want to have that work life balance. It's very important for me. And so that was one of the best decisions I made for myself this year. When even I say it, I'm so happy because I'm so proud of myself. And yeah, so I broke the cycle, Roheen. I did break the cycle.
Winnie, my sister, I'm so happy for you because
Thank you, Roheen.
I am. Because when you just said, remember that time when you saw me, I saw you because I saw me too.
Mm-hmm,
And we both met at a time when both of us were really breaking apart as a
mm-hmm,
result of burnout. And so to see you now and sharing this beautiful reflection of where you were versus where you are now, it's my heart is skipping a beat. My soul is just full because we deserve, as women of color, and particularly as Black women, we deserve
mm-hmm.
to have a life that we're living and
Yes,
living fully.
100%.
We don't
Yeah.
exist, and this is what I'm hearing you say, we don't exist to be somebody's product. We don't exist to be performing for people.
Mm-hmm,
When, and when and when you break that cycle, and make those choices. And for you, it meant resigning. For others, it's going to be, I'm going to say no and I'm going to set up boundaries. And for others, it's going to be,
Yes.
I need to take a medical leave. And the choices are
Yes.
alternates that honor you. That's what breaking that cycle ends up being.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Mm-hmm.
Winnie, I appreciate you. I know you have shared so much, and we could probably go on and on about a topic that is so crucial. But perhaps what I'll do is, as I bring ourselves to a close, is we have a range of listeners, and I imagine that there
Mm-hmm.
are racialized women who are listening to this podcast episode who are well into their leadership career, or some who are just starting off, and burnout
Mm-hmm.
might not even be on their radar, which is fair and valid. What would be one piece of advice you would give to this range of listeners?
That one piece of advice is choose yourself.
Mm,
Put yourself first, always. Look out for yourself. And all this comes down to choosing yourself. Bet on yourself over and over again. Yeah.
hell yeah. Yes. I
Yes.
100%. I take that message, I receive that message with kindness, and I imagine many are going to do the same. Those who are watching on YouTube
Mm-hmm.
or those who are listening to us on their favorite live streaming podcast. I know we've spoken about a lot of heavy stuff, and I just want to honor
Yes.
you, Winnie, for sharing. So I'm going to invite us to end on a light note. I have two final questions, and the
Oh.
first question, I know, I know, surprise. The first question that I'm going to ask you to share with us is, what has been the strangest gift you have received?
Oh my gosh, Rahim. This question, Roheen, why would you do this?
I'm so
What is this?
curious
What's the
now. Tell
second?
me.
Can we skip this? What's the next question? What's the second one? What is the next? Can I skip, please?
I feel like you're skidding around a question because something came to your mind that you don't want to tell us.
This is a PG podcast, right? Yeah. So
Okay,
I think
okay.
that's enough for the
It's
listeners to
enough.
know. Like, yes.
I appreciate the humor that we can always have with each other, and I hear you. Strange but functional, perhaps. So let me go
Mm-hmm.
to the let's go to the second question.
Yes, please let us.
And my second and final question is, Winnie, often those who are listening and watching, they want to get to know the guests a little bit more and get to know the work that you are doing. So how can people get to know you?
Right. Right now I'm taking a break from LinkedIn. I would have said go find me on LinkedIn, but I'm taking a break from LinkedIn. Just,
Amazing.
part of that self-care that we're talking about, choose you and all that. So I'm doing that for the next maybe 5 months, but I will be
Amazing.
back on LinkedIn and finding me. I'll still give Rohin the link to my LinkedIn so that you can find me on LinkedIn. Another place you can find me is Instagram. I'm not very active on there, but I am on Instagram. So reach out to me, send me a DM if you have any questions about mentorship, if you have any questions about, more on the topic of burnout and other things, leadership stuff. I am very open to helping. I can have tea with you, coffee with you, and just talk about it. I want to support as many women as I can, and so do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'll also give Rohin my email address, and you can also reach me via email.
Amazing. Ah, Winnie, thank you so much. Thank you for your openness and your willingness to connect. I think you keep embodying this incredible way of showing up with so much intentionality in us being able to be together in conversation, in dialogue, and in breaking those cycles that don't serve us. So without further ado, thank you, Winnie. Thank you for being in this conversation with me, for sharing your insights and your wisdom, and for also using your experience as a way for others to say there's an opportunity here for me to work, live, and lead differently. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rohin, for having me. I cannot thank you enough. I also want to thank all my friends, my family, and all the people that have supported me. I just want them to know that I'm very, very grateful. I might not say it enough. And Rohin, once again, I am super grateful. You reached out,
Thank you.
and it's been such a pleasure. I look forward to coming back in the next season, maybe, or maybe the 10th season. Who knows? But
Oh my
I'd
God,
love
yeah.
to come back. I'd love to come back and chat a little bit more, but thank you, thank you,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Winnie. Burnout was first acknowledged in 1974 by Herbert Fraudenberger. In 2022, the World Health Organization classified it as an occupational syndrome. Every report you read, whether it's from McKinsey or Canadian Women's Foundation, the alarming rate of burnout is on the rise, particularly for women. As someone who has burnt out, this topic, as you might have guessed, is close to my heart and an experience I wish no one to have to heal from. As Winnie shared, everyone experiences burnout differently, and I'd like to acknowledge that if you are feeling any of the symptoms we discussed or other symptoms, please seek medical advice. Now, I know it's no surprise that as women of color in leadership, the journey is often masked with systemic biases, microaggressions, and stressful repetitions of injustice. This is true for many individuals who have marginalized identities. One thing I've had to reflect on is, do we always have to burn out? And how can I better understand how I keep repeating this cycle? Life University, an incredible program delivered by Dr. Amar Dal and Sandy Farag, helped me understand this. And if you are wondering, did she really take a program to understand burnout while burning out? Yeah, I did. It's almost like you need a framework to understand the framework. But here's the beauty about understanding something that is happening with you. You see, burnout is like having your foot on the brake and accelerator at the same time, to the point of setting a new way of being that became what Amar and Sandy shared with me as an altered allostatic load. Why is this important? Well, I want you to picture a graph. The graph has a horizontal line and a vertical line. And at the bottom of this graph is what we refer to as your baseline. It's a line that represents you feeling calm, at peace, and balanced. It's the resting point that we all want to feel after work is complete and where you just have a chance to just be. Now, in the same graph, I want you to picture a second line above it. This becomes the allostatic load, the load or the line that represents when your body is activated with energy, productivity, and focus, especially when you are working. The challenge becomes when this allostatic load or line keeps moving further and further away from your baseline. The increase in the gap makes it difficult to re energize, to bounce back, or to have the plasticity to do so. The visual that I hope has been managed to form in your mind becomes a representation of what burnout actually becomes: living in disequilibrium and dysregulation. Keep doing this long enough, and our bodies end up adapting to being at the level of high demands on every fiber and system of our being, which we all know doesn't lead to somewhere positive. Sounds familiar? I'm sorry it does. I truly do. It's not sustainable to be working at 110%, if not more. It's not fair. And it's certainly not what any of us need to prove our worth, competence, or anything else. Here are 3 things I'd like you to know about breaking the cycle of burnout. 1, you don't have to live or lead in this state of functionality. I know sometimes it feels like we don't need to seek permission, but sometimes it helps when somebody says you have a right to not have to live or lead in this way. We don't have to be the martyrs of tolerating unreasonable expectations of what needs to get done, nor do we have to be the ones to create the false pace to make the changes that haven't been addressed in decades. Secondly, you have a right to seek and get support from multiple sources and people. And if you need to take a break to figure it all out, do it. Your health is far more important than any strategic project, milestone, and yes, even your team. Put aside the guilt, shift the responsibility to someone else. Be your own advocate. Third, your steps to healing are yours to design. I hope you will open yourself to different healing modalities, practices of care, and rest your mind, body, and soul. And as you return to a different season of being you, may the lessons and insights carry you into a new way of being. Remember, your energy is powerful. You are powerful. Not everyone will see it this way, and that's just sometimes how it is. The vibrancy and joy in the life you want to live begins with you, begins with the choices and the boundaries you set to live a connected and fulfilling life while leading. There is an African proverb that says, "Do not look where you fell, but where you slipped." What is one step you can take today to recalibrate the threshold of your capacity?
The world needs more of you being just you. As always, take care of yourself and see you soon.